is and how would we best define nutrition? The dictionary says nutrition is the process of providing or obtaining the food necessary for health and growth. We both know that what we eat really helps create the outcomes that we get from our physical activities. But Ryan, how would you define nutrition?
Yeah, so I would define good nutrition as finding a way of eating that works for you to do a number of things, one of which would be control energy balance. So in other words, manage a healthy body weight. It would provide adequate nutrients. It would allow us to look, perform, feel our best. Most importantly, I would say good nutrition it has to be sustainable. I think it's one of the most crucial components that is often missing in many of the common current dietary approaches. But it has to be a way in which you can maintain, not just when you're in your optimal environment. So that means it's sustainable when you're on vacation. It's sustainable when you're in an environment with lots of temptation, hyperpalatable foods or other things like that. So good nutrition is also going to promote regular movement. And that's, again, one of the biggest struggles that my clients have is the comparison to what used to be achievable, what used to be realistic, and also kind of slipping into what I call the all or nothing mentality. So it's kind of like that, well, if I can't be what I used to be in terms of physique or athletic performance, what's the point? Everybody seems to be searching for just the right approach, the optimal diet, the optimal workouts, and so forth. And when I talk about the mind shift, it's like shifting from that all or nothing mindset to that always something, celebrating the little tiny successes along the way. What so many of us do is, especially former high performance athletes like yourself, where you've done grueling 2-hour workouts, maybe even doubles. You've had probably sub 10% body fat, lots of muscle on your body. The concept of doing a 10-minute workout, because that's all your current schedule allows for, is like, what the hell is the point of that? I used to do two-hour workouts in a day type thing. But an interesting concept that I've actually come across recently is the aggregation of marginal gains. So a neat story is this guy who was brought in to help the British cycling team. I won't dive into that because it's quite a long story, but essentially he coined this term, the aggregation of marginal gains. So it's essentially the 1%, even though we don't notice it in the moment, it adds up. So our brains evolved in kind of an immediate outcome environment, and now things have shifted. And so it kind of works against us. If we can connect our brains with a delayed outcome, which most things are, you go to work today to get a paycheck in 2 weeks, you save now to have retirement later, this kind of thing. It's hard to notice that benefit of that 10-minute workout or that single 10-minute walk if you're trying to lose weight and so forth. So I know I'm kind of rambling on that topic, but it's a very, very common thing, especially for high performance athletes who think, what is the point? And when they do get motivated and have that desire to get things back on track with their health, they tend to, one of my biggest jobs as a coach is to like, okay, I love it, but let's reel things in here. and we got to start small. You got to prove to me, show me that you can do this little thing consistently, because consistency, and again, like I said, sustainability of your approach is ultimately the most important thing. The other day, in North America in general, we all know we're in a bit of a obesity or overweight epidemic. We don't have collectively, we don't have a weight loss problem. We have a weight regain problem. So many people are able to lose weight, and unfortunately, the way things are marketed and the way that that the current industry sort of caters to is that sexy program. It's like 3 months guaranteed this X amount of weight loss, but they don't really give a shit about, whether it's going to stay off. And that's what happens. People regain because those habits that they, or what they think are habits, or the plan that they follow short term, are not, like you said, those truly integrated habits that become, habitual, right? It's like habits in our minds is essentially the brain's way of hardwiring a shortcut. So the mind will, if you do something enough, the mind will no longer really need to process or work as hard in order to do that habit. And so if it's a all or nothing plan, again, to use that catchphrase, which is what most diet plans are. Here's your meal plan. Here's the workouts you're going to do. You're going to be fasting for X amount of hours a day. You got to drink this much water. It's quite overwhelming. A lot of people lose weight doing that, which is great. But what happens when that plan is over, or you crash and burn because it's unsustainable? People just slip right back to their truly integrated habits, which ultimately leads to the weight regain.
And what I've noticed as my journey as a type 1 diabetic is that if I eat well, my body craves really good food and good fuel, and I perform better, and that cycle begins. When I sit down, watch a movie, and I eat high carbs and I start feasting on chips, it requests more chips. And the next thing I know is my sugars are high, my energy goes low, and I begin this cycle and this spiral of trying to manage my sugar, which is really what it's all about.
So, like you said, recognizing that you eat this hyper palatable food or sugary food or high carb or whatever it is, and your body seems to crave more. I mean, that's something that on the spectrum of awareness, a lot of people are completely unaware of, and others that identify, know it's there, yet seem to consistently fall back into that cycle and so forth. But even just in my own experience, it's the awareness is such a crucial component to it, and ultimately it's what makes you progress towards that sustainable baseline that is, not optimal, but just this like ability to be consistently adhere to good nutrition in any environment, because you think, if I eat that extra slice of pizza or eat that cake, I know what happens. I'm aware of how I feel. I'm aware of how it affects my mental ability to process things. I'm slower, I'm more lethargic, and all this. So the awareness component and the integration of it all is huge.
The importance of nutrition for basic health, for growth, and for the healing of our body, whether it's for just the ability as a senior to get up and go for a walk, or for an elite Olympic athlete for them to heal as they're pursuing the highest levels of performance. Nutrition affects us all. So, what are your thoughts, and how important are our choices? And this will lead us to rituals, but our choices over what we put on our plate.
Yeah, that's a good one. So to kind of fall back on the habit side of things, it's relying on sheer discipline and willpower is futile. It's a futile effort, even for the most elite athletes. So our choices really revolve around setting up our environments in such a way. I mean, that are going to make the better habits, the good habits, more accessible, easier, more satisfying, and the bad ones more difficult. Sort of more layers between that. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, I mean, I love what you said, how it all sort of integrates. It's kind of like with a lot of the healing side of things, it's tough to know, everything matters. Recovery, which involves good nutrition, sleep is so crucial. And in some cases, it's difficult to know what came first, the chicken or the egg, in terms of, is it like, we know that research has shown that poor sleep, chronic sleep deprivation, will impact your physiological ability to burn fat, build muscle. Like, it's got such a huge accumulation of negative downsides. And does that, it causes poor nutrition, but does good nutrition improve sleep? Probably. So it's one of those things where, similar to the deep health approach, it's got to be a holistic thing. So if you have someone who's trying to heal, a client who's trying to heal, and their sleep is just garbage, then that's something that we would want to focus on. But again, nutrition plays into that as well. So not sure if I'm answering your question there, but the choices we make it's again, this unfortunate paradigm that so much of what we do is delayed outcomes. So the bad habits seem to be a result of immediate outcomes. This is sweet, this is salty, this tastes good, this relieves my stress in the moment. Unfortunately, it has bad long-term outcomes, whereas the good habits and so forth, they generally have kind of either completely unrecognizable short-term outcomes, in some cases even negative short-term outcomes. Like, for someone who doesn't work out consistently, goes to the gym, that burn can be actually an uncomfortable experience. And yet, finding a way to connect with the long-term benefits and shifting our mindset is essential to healing and just living healthy. Like, motivation is a desire. It's relying on motivation to get our ass in the gym, or to prepare that healthy, or make that healthy food choice. It's fleeting, so it comes and goes, and such as is discipline and willpower. So, and I say, hey, I'm having a crummy day, like where my level of motivation was low. I got my workout in, I did my morning ritual, I meditated, I ate well, had a good sleep. Sometimes the most frustrating pieces are when you can't quite put a finger on what's going wrong. But those would be the days where, if I was following some unsustainable crash diet, I would fly off the handles and order 7 large pizzas to my door. If I didn't have my systems in place, right? Thankfully, this is what I do. I've slowly layered on exceptionally healthy habits that I'm always reviewing, trying to pull back and objectively review and improve. But at this point, my workouts, my food prep, my meditation, my mindfulness, all of this stuff is so deeply ingrained into my daily routine that I've got healthy food ready to go in the fridge. So it's easy. I don't have chips or, cookies or things that would tempt me in my house all the time.
How do we create healthy eating habits without a rigid plan and give ourselves the time to see the results?
It's a good question. Yeah. All that hydration talk makes me want to just dive into my 2 liter here. Necessary, you guys. It's a good question, Heath. And again, it's so individual. It's like, where is that person at? So, and it's where their goals are as well. Different people have different goals. I think ultimately, when you peel back the layers, we all kind of have similar goals. We want that long-term sustainability. But if you've been an elite athlete, you have a certain level of innate, natural discipline and focus and willpower. So those can be great assets when embarking on that. Often they can be they can create a bit of ambivalence and resistance to my personal approach, because one of my sort of main objectives, like my mission, so to speak, is sustainability. So if you're looking, I'm say this sort of right up front. It's like, if you're looking to lose X amount of weight by this date, I'm not your guy. I've got a good network of coaches who would be more on that data driven, here are your instructions, follow this, and you will get there. And that's totally fine. My sort of core mission is, I want to work with people longer, because it takes longer, because I want it to be sustainable. I want you to leave your time with me able and with the tools to essentially thrive in any environment. So that's a long-winded version of answering your question, Heath, but it really depends on the individual, and it's all about scaling back and starting small. One of my most crucial things that I fall back on constantly is, how is that working for you? So people who have, and again, it's totally, I empathize with it entirely, because the market has dictated this sort of outlook. We've been blasted with marketing of unrealistic expectations. Like you said, the guy on the magazine cover who, peaked for that photo shoot, and it's not a healthy body weight, and he's gonna put on fat afterwards. And these other programs from people who are just trying to make a quick buck and issue unsustainable approaches. We've been sort of promised a false hope. And so I totally get it. But at the end of it, it's like, you have to scale back, and it's, show me that you can do this. Because most people think, oh, this is too slow, too simple. Show me, prove it. Quite often, the last thing clients need is more information. We all know the general concept: eat mostly whole foods, move a little more, eat a little less. It's easy in theory, very difficult to actually apply. So, as well as when you're looking at that fatigue that you're talking about from a busy entrepreneur's lifestyle, simple is better. It's looking at what you can peg off in the short term, and even if it's just one meal, like you said, the meal plan, it's like, what meal do you tend to fall back on? You can actually gather data and see, well, generally in the evening is when I feel most fatigued. I tend to reach for that beer or that bag of chips or whatever else. So again, relying on the systems that you can start to implement, but starting very simply and just saying, I'm going to try and focus on this one little thing and make that marginal improvement that over time, once it sticks, we're going to add on more, layer on more, and it's the aggregation of marginal gains. Like your systems of planning ahead. I mean, that's one of my core habits is like, oh, well, how are we going to get there? Well, I need to eat better. How are you going to eat better? Well, I should probably load my fridge up with more groceries, healthy groceries. Okay. How are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to go shopping this week. When are you going to go shopping? Let me think. Oh, when I have time after work. Okay. What day? Like making that appointment, getting closer and closer, and having that an integral part. Treat it like this is your business, like your health is your business.